Hi there, I'm Ginevra, and this is an episode all about anxiety. I'm going to talk about my experiences from the past, what I'm going through right now, and how I'm setting myself up for the future. I'm also going to share some tips on how to combat anxiety. And if you're watching the video, you can see that I'm not in my usual space. I'm surrounded by these beautiful passion red walls and cool stage lights. And it's the music room in the hotel that I'm staying at in Melbourne. And to my surprise and delight, there was already a Rode podcaster machine set up. And I didn't know this before I booked the hotel, so it was totally meant to be. So through my on and off experience as an anxiety sufferer, my panic attacks usually happen as a reaction to events in my life. And so I've come to learn that they are messages from my mind to my body. And sometimes it's hard to discern when it's a story that I've been telling myself or if it's a genuine note of concern from my higher self. So I'm going to go into some of the reasons that I experience anxiety attacks. It could be a warning to slow down or to do less. It could be a reminder that I'm not honouring personal boundaries. And it could be a reaction to ignoring my intuition or harbouring unprocessed emotional trauma. But as a key point, knowing what is bringing it on is usually the resolution for making it subside. So I'm going to give you an example from my past of, when anxiety was coming on as a reaction to an event. And this happened a few years ago, and there was a thunderstorm going on, and I was in my home with my kid, and there were hailstones the size of golf balls, and they started smashing windows in our house. And 1 minute we were safe in our home, and the next minute we weren't. And it really disturbed that peace. It messed with the idea that your home is your safe space. And a situation like that is almost going to guarantee anxiety for me. There are various circumstances that will bring about anxiety. My kids' health is one of them. My two boys are my life, and I don't want to see them suffer. It's a normal parenting concern. And I remember a time when I hadn't been separated for very long, and my youngest was unwell, and my body was doing its usual panicking thing, and I remember having trouble calming myself down. And in hindsight, it wasn't about the uncertainty of my child's health. A little bit was due to that, of course, but it was added to that. It was also about going through it alone as a single parent. Yeah. It's not that difficult to find yourself at a point in life where you could be held captive to your anxiety. And if you're at that point or near that point, I think it's important to reassess your tactics, for better quality of life, better health long term. It's a reality that you could wear out your adrenal glands if your body's constantly in an anxious state. that's just one side effect. That's something that my mother suffers from, and seeing that, you know, it's a reminder for me. Well, I don't want to get to that stage. And expanding on that, you also don't want your main fears to start breaking out into sub-fears, so that eventually you're living in fear of living. And that's when you know that you're being held captive. So just like any issue, the first step is acknowledging it, you know, not ignoring it. And then you make a decision after that acknowledgement. Are you going to accept it? Are you going to just let it go as a form of release or surrender in a peaceful way? Or, you know, are you going to try and remedy it? For me, anxiety boils down to a perception of chaos in your internal and external environment. And a positive way to look at it is it's your body's ability to cope with chaos and trauma. And I just, you know, I feel like I need to add this. Clearly, I'm not a health expert. I don't have a degree in psychology or whatever. I'm just someone that has battled this for years, and these are the things that I've worked out for myself. And I'm always open to better ways of doing things. But this is my current journey. And anxiety it's my internal messaging system, or a part of it. And it's also like a progress counter. And I just think that can be a really cool and sane way to look at it and to embrace it. This might sound a bit woo-woo, but you know, like my reaction to chaos and my sensitivity to it contributes to my individuality. And what I mean by that is I feel like my sensitivity, it just powers my connection to the universe and the people in it, you know, how I relate to the world around me. And anxiety, it enhances my ability to empathize, and ultimately I believe that it makes me a better communicator, and ultimately a better writer. Sometimes feeling affected by chaos just reaffirms that you still care, and it can remind you of the causes that you feel passionate about. It can also inspire advocacy for change. A really good example of this is, I just want to talk about a local Adelaidean. Her name's Taryn Brumfitt, and she has gone on quite the journey. She started the body image movement, and you know, that began when she was experiencing a lot of anxiety around body image issues, and then impressively took that anxiety and turned it into an empowering campaign that educates people on what it truly means to have a healthy body image. For me, panicking transitions into an anxiety attack, like a full-blown attack, when I just feel helpless and really uncomfortable with the uncertainty. And I generally feel this way when I'm not feeling balanced emotionally, and I don't have enough information about the matter at hand. And what I need to learn to focus on in those moments is what's able to be helped, what are the factors that I can actually do something about? It is difficult to have this mindset when your mind is riddled with thoughts of worst case scenarios, and you convince yourself that you're just not going to make it through in that moment. And it's then that I need to self-soothe. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I'm recording this episode in the hotel that I'm staying at in Melbourne because I've come down for the Billy Joel concert. And I've already experienced a set of incidents that have given me slight, air quotes, anxiety. Most of them have involved public transport, and being around hordes of people. My experiences on the trams alone have been just totally awful. They just keep overloading the trams with people. And it's not very much fun for someone with claustrophobic tendencies. We were packed like sardines, and my thoughts start to unfold what if we break down? I'm stuck between these people and I can't move, I can't get out. And what if I pass out? It probably sounds ridiculous, but I have been known to pass out in a severe anxiety attack before. Another time this weekend, I had to catch a bus because the tram route had terminated and due to roadworks. And again, they overloaded the bus and there was what felt like no air ventilation. I had a bottle of water that I managed to get through with that, but there were times where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And so on these occasions, I would turn to mental affirmations just to guide my way through it. And I'd say words like, you are meant to be here, you're in the right place at the right time, you're strong, you can handle whatever you were given. And that maybe sounds corny to some of you, but whatever the fuck works. And it got me through. So now I'm going to share a few tips that have helped me through the years to combat anxiety. And so I've shared how affirmations can help. There's also a mantra that I follow, and this is a Louise Hay saying, and it goes something like this: all is well, everything is working out for my highest good, out of this situation only good will come, I am safe. I love that one because it seems perfect for any anxious situation, and you can also insert a name or a he, she if you want to say it for a loved one. Funny enough, I didn't remember to say it when I was, a sardine on a tram. I really needed to remember that one, especially on the tram that was leaving the MCG. Oh my God. So some more tips, yes. So not all of these are convenient or practical when you're in the middle of a full-blown attack. Some might be better as a longer-term strategy. But you can take a tincture called Rescue Remedy. It's a natural stress relief, and it's a combination of bark flower remedies. It works to calm the nerves, and it's available at most chemists and supermarkets. And this is not an ad. It's just something that I swear by. Rescue Remedy. Having a calm, logical person beside you, reassuring you that everything is going to be okay. So in this case, the company you keep is, it matters. Because being next to another anxious person is just going to send you into intense overdrive. It's not always practical because sometimes we're going through this shit alone. But yeah, more on this point a little bit later on. Next is to have an effective physical self-soothing technique. So I used to sit down and put my head between my knees and breathe deeply. But what seems to work better for me lately is when you can put one hand on your heart and the other hand on your belly and just breathe deeply. And it's best if you can make contact with your bare skin. I only discovered this technique a couple of years ago when Gabby Bernstein mentioned it on her podcast, and I just find that it works like 99% of the time. It's really simple. Another physical technique is to have a power move. Some people have this move when they're like they've got to step up and they've got to about to apply for a job, or they've got to go out on stage, or just something to just physically psych them up to just get into their best state. I think this is a Tony Robbins concept. I could be wrong, but mine is I just clench my hand into a fist and whack it against my chest. And this kind of just helps to reinforce my internal strength. And it has to be a pretty good fucking whacking because it jolts me back into a present state. Doesn't always work, but it can be really effective. There's also prayer, if you're that way inclined, and meditation. So if you find it hard to stay present with meditation like I do, then try a guided one. There's like a bunch on Insight Timer. I'm going to share these key points in the show notes. And look, I'm going to be honest, I don't use meditation for when I'm having a full-blown attack. Like I use it more for a lower level anxious state. Like if I'm feeling unsettled and I can't pinpoint why. And I just want to reiterate that the right technique matters here, because sometimes meditation can actually intensify your emotions, and you don't really want that when you're trying to self-soothe. So pick the right technique. For a longer term strategy, I've got some books that I can recommend. You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. It's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. The Wisdom of Anxiety by Sheryl Paul, and Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. They're all really great books, and again, I'll put them in the show notes for you. This is probably more of a drastic approach, but you can try connecting with a support group. This is especially handy if you have a recurring theme for your anxiety, and what I mean by that is you've just undergone a significant life change, so terminal illness, loss of a loved one, or lost your job, especially when your job has felt like it's part of your identity, that kind of thing. And I've always been an anxious kid, but my anxiety went to a whole new level when I finished high school, and it started to floor me, like literally. And so then I started going to support meetings, and it was amazing to see how many people grappled with the same shit. And I just found a real comfort in that. I think that was also the first time that I was introduced to meditation. And I was only 17. And that seemed to fit well for me as a teenager, when I learnt what was happening to me. So that fit as an educational purpose at the time. I don't go to support groups anymore. But yeah, that was what I needed at that point in my life. Connecting with nature is another one. So, go take a dip in the ocean. The salt water can be really purifying. Going for a quick walk around your neighborhood. This is really good when you're stuck in that ruminating mental loop. You know the one I mean? It's really good. It helps to shift your thoughts when you go on that quick walk. I don't do this when I'm in the middle of a full-on attack. I do it for lower level anxiety. Otherwise, for an acute attack, standing bare feet in soil, I find that an incredible way to get grounded instantly. On all levels, I find that really works. So one of those tips will nip it in the bud for me, and usually, but sometimes I need to do more than one or all of them simultaneously. And overall, I feel pretty lucky that my anxiety is quite manageable. I don't see it going away, pretty much here to stay. And I think if you're in that situation as well, the best thing you can do is make friends with it, So on this trip, my anxiety has been quite prominent, and so before the concert started at the MCG, I went to St Kilda Beach because I wanted to sunbake, and time kind of ran away with itself, and I thought, there's going to be 80,000 other people wanting to get to the MCG. I better sort my life out and leave the beach early. So I get to the tram stop, and I find out that the tram won't take me right into the city, and that I'd have to switch to a bus. And then the bus was overloaded, and I got off and I decided to get an Uber. And then we were stuck in traffic because of roadworks, and I started to worry about getting to the concert on time. And I started to do that thing to myself where it's like, you've come to this city for the concert. It's like the one event, and now you're going to be late. Like, you had one job, Ginevra, doing that to myself. And then I just flipped it and took a deep breath and said, you are on time. You spent just the right amount of time sunbaking. You went to the tram stop, as God intended. Everything is happening as it should. And that was what unlocked me. I got back to the hotel a lot later than planned, but I still had time to get ready, catch the train, which wasn't overloaded, by the way, get to the venue, sift through all those people, go to the toilet, buy water, get to my seat with 15 minutes to spare, and I made a new friend. So it all worked out perfectly. And then the tram experience back to the city after the concert was a fucking nightmare, again with the mental affirmations. And, as I said before, there's been a prominent theme with this trip because, I'm in an unfamiliar city and I'm on my own. And whether it's walking the streets at night by myself or going out dancing by myself or being approached by men, etc., I've had to just make friends with the anxiety to keep my wits about me. So I just want to talk about something really cool that Billy Joel said at the concert, something he shared with, his audience. And it's in line, totally in line with my podcast. In fact, as soon as he said it, I thought, I'm sharing this in the episode. From the creativity aspect. In his very famous song, Innocent Man, there's a high note in the chorus. And Billy Joel was saying to us before he launched into the song that he used to be able to hit that high note pretty easily, but now, in his older years, he finds it difficult to hit that note, and sometimes he avoids it. And he said that he had some anxiety around it because he was saying if he didn't hit that note at the concert, then some of us were going to walk away and go, well, he sucks and he can't sing anymore. And he said all of this with a humorous tone, by the way, which I loved. And then he continues and he says, but tonight I'm going to try and hit this note. And we're loving this story. Like, we erupted. We're encouraging him. Massive, massive roar from the crowd. And then he says, but please pray for me. So there's lots of laughter. Like, how good is that story? And he launches into the song. Of course he hits the fucking note. Of course. So beautiful. Not because he hit the note, but Billy Joel, as famous as he is with all of his accolades, he's that open with 80,000 people sharing his anxiety over a song that he created, his artistry. He has nothing to prove anymore, and yet it keeps him vulnerable. I really love that. As I wrap this up, the last thing I want to say, which expands on the Billy Joel point, is that when you're going through an anxious time, tell people about it. Because it makes you feel less alone. And sometimes the person you share it with has that very mindset that you lack in that moment and that you will benefit from. And I think there's a fine line between sharing your anxiety, which if done with the wrong intention can give it extra unnecessary energy, but done with the right intention, it can actually give you the strength that sometimes you didn't realize that you have, and it will just carry you through your uncertainty. So while I was waiting for the tram at St Kilda, I got to chatting with another Melbourner, and I was telling him that I was feeling anxious about getting to the show on time. And he humoured me in a very soothing, bubbly way. Even when I thought I was going to pass out on that bus. And, then I decided I can't take the bus any longer, and we happened to get off at the same stop, and we shared brief insights about our life, and then he took me to a good spot where I could catch my Uber from, and he gave me his number and asked to stay in touch. And so I just think there is a real comfort and power in sharing. So that concludes this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there was something in it for you. If not, please share it with a friend who has been plagued with anxiety. If you want to get in touch and share your own experiences or ask me a question, you can email me, podcast@iamginevra.com. Thanks for sharing this gorgeous one-off groovy space with me. And until next time, take care And thanks for listening.